been a lot of funding problems with the med school, and I'll let you explain it. You actually put a bill in that passed the House yesterday, will be read for the third time today, and then be sent to the Senate. What does this bill do if you're successful with it? You wrote the bill, so tell us what it's about.
Well, a little background on it altogether. SODCA, which is Set Off Debt Collection Act, it's a method by which state agencies are able to collect debt on individuals or corporations when those individuals or corporations have more than $50 worth of debt. It's over 120 days past due, and there's no payment arrangements that have been made. That state agency can go in and take a portion, not the entire amount, but a portion of a state tax return or any lottery proceeds to offset that debt that's owed to the state. Last session, we fought really hard to try to change this, but over in the Senate, they decided that they were going to change the definition of the University of North Carolina healthcare system, as well as the East Carolina medical faculty practice plan, from no longer being defined as a state agency, thereby not allowing them to be able to take advantage of SODCA any longer. Our fiscal note from our research team shows that if this is continued to allow, it's about a $13.9 million hit to the university system. You know, and at a time when we're asking for additional cuts, we're asking them to be, more prudent with their finances. This is not a time to really, arm strap them on how they're able to collect debt that's owed not only to them, but quite frankly to the state. So what we did yesterday, in the first day of voting on the floor, we put an amendment into an omnibus tax bill to reinstate the availability for both institutions to be redefined as state agencies so they can continue taking advantage of the SODCA practice that every other state agency in our state is able to take advantage of, and be able to collect those receipts that are owed to the state and to our institutions.
You know, I think this makes total sense, and it's frustrating that they lost it to begin with, frankly, and here's why I feel that way. It doesn't cost taxpayers anything.
Not a dime.
It doesn't cost. This is funding that the med school had that didn't come out of the pockets of the taxpayers. That's number one. Number two, you made the point that other state agencies do it, and these med schools, the med school here in Greenville, the med school in Chapel Hill, they are owned by the taxpayers. So I never have understood why certain legislators feel that it makes sense to allow the state to garnish people's tax returns and their lottery winnings to pay their taxes but not pay their medical bills. I don't understand that. If the medical bills go, because ultimately that is going to cost the taxpayers money if we keep losing funding at the med school, it's got to be made up some way, or we got to shut down the med school.
That's right. You know, the argument that I continue to hear is that it's an unfair advantage for the public versus private sector. Private hospitals aren't able to do this. They're not able to set off their debt by collecting on tax returns, and it's unfair that the public universities can do this. You know, my argument is we're talking about public dollars. We're talking about money that an individual owes to the state.
It's not a competitive advantage, though. I mean, it may be an advantage in the way that the med school might be able to collect money versus a private hospital, but I don't understand how that's a competitive issue.
You know, that's really the argument, is that's the competitive issue, that it is a unique method by which they're able to offset their debt that a private for-profit organization's not able to do.
And we should point out that Vidant Medical Center and Vidant Health has been supportive of the ECU getting this funding. It is not the local hospital. It is other hospitals around the state.
And that's been part of the trouble that we've had to achieve and overcome is making legislators west of 95 understand what is going on east of 95, and that, East Carolina University is not like UNC. We do not own a hospital. Our practice plan focuses primarily on charitable care throughout our rural population here in eastern North Carolina. And in an effort to be able to continue achieving that, we need to be able to be allowed to use methods like debt set-off to ensure that we have as much revenue stream coming in as possible to continue this mission. And Vidant is extraordinarily supportive of that.
Brian, there are also people who say that, the people who cannot pay their bills at the medical school are usually poverty-stricken, that, we do live in a very difficult area of the state where, and a lot of times, patients at the medical school, not always, but a lot of patients at the medical school are patients that don't have health care insurance, and they come there and their station in life is such that they need assistance. And so one of the arguments has been, why do we want to put this extra burden on them to actually be taking away their tax refund money. How do you respond to that?
Well, I think if you look at the charitable mission of our university, they're doing just that. I mean, their mission is to help individuals who do not have insurance, who cannot afford to pay for health care, to be able to actually receive accessible care in the communities in which they live. This is a method by which if you do not have, and again, it goes back to saying, if you cannot even set up a payment plan, I mean, our university is very vocal in saying we are willing to work with every patient who's willing to work with us.
Yeah, that's a point. That's a point I'm glad you're emphasizing, because they're not saying that they're going to go after people who are trying to pay. They're just going after the people who refuse to pay.
Refuse to pay. That come in, get health care provided to them, and then refuse to pay. And again, my whole point is that this is state dollars. You and I wouldn't be able to get away with it. They would come after us, and they would want our tax returns. We need to be able to ensure that this debt is offset. And again, the whole thing is it's not taking the entire tax return or the entire lottery proceeds. It's taking a portion of it to help offset the debt that's owed.
Right. Your bill went in yesterday. You wrote the bill. And now we should also say that East Carolina had this funding.
That's correct.
Until last year, the legislative session last year.
That's correct.
And you fought very hard, along with some more Eastern North Carolina folks. I know Susan Martin was very helpful on this. Who else? Who else was in the fight with us?
Everybody on the House side's been extraordinarily supportive, particularly from the leadership side.
Tom Tillis has been very helpful.
Speaker Tillis has been extraordinarily helpful. When I went to bring this back up this session, he was the first person I went to see, and he said, "You absolutely have my support again. Let me know what we can do to move this." House leadership has been absolutely wonderful in understanding it and advocating for it. In fact, some of the leaders have already set meetings with Senator Rucho, Senator Brown, some of these other individuals to continue to help advocate for us over here and help them understand what's at stake. And, if you're on the appropriation side like I am, this is $13.9 million. It is very reasonable to believe that if we lose $13.9 million from a revenue stream from our university system, we're going to have to make that up through an appropriation. And at a time when we're asking you to cut $49 million, where are we going to find an additional $13.9 million to ensure that our healthcare institutions remain solvent and open here in our state.
It's interesting. The Board of Governors actually included in their budget request $10 million emergency money for the medical schools.
Right.
And that's kind of where the medical schools are at this point.
That's right.
And so that's probably going to get denied, is what I'm thinking. And so when there are people that don't support this kind of funding as well, you kind of wonder, where does that leave medical schools like the Brody School of Medicine? Because frankly, Chapel Hill's medical school, they have a hospital. They're owned.
They do.
The hospital and the medical school are both owned by the university system.
That's right.
Here in Greenville, the medical school is owned by the university, but we do not own the hospital, and so they rely on the hospital to help keep them afloat. And but the hospital's a private, not-for-profit corporation.
That's right.
But
I have to say, if you want to look at a good public-private partnership, look no further than Vidant Medical Center and East Carolina University.
Right.
The way they work in collaboration, not only through funding, but collaboration through the residency programs and things. That it is a program that works extraordinarily well. But we have to ensure that the funding is there on both sides so that program can continue successfully.
People may not know you worked up to literally the last minute of the legislative session in 2013 to get this reinstated, and it got blocked in the Senate. So where are we today? You've got the bill now passed again in the House. It will be sent out of the House today, which means it will go over to the Senate. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, we did it the first day of voting on the floor because we didn't want to wait to the very last minute. I wanted this to get out of the House as quickly as possible and over to the Senate. My gut
and it was unanimous.
It was unanimous in the House. I can tell what every picture is in every House member's office because I spent a lot of time educating them on what SODCA was and what it meant. But once it goes over to the Senate, my feeling is this amendment was included in an omnibus tax bill. There's not a consensus across the board on this tax bill. It has to do with privilege license, vapor cigarettes. A whole lot of things are included in this tax bill. My gut is that it's going to go to conference between both House and Senate. My goal will be to try to get on that conference committee. And the real goal is to get senators who are opposed to SODCA to explain why they feel giving up $13.9 million of taxpayer money is an appropriate method to to continue.
Non-taxpayer money.
But in reality, it is. I mean, in
Right.
reality, it's either funded through taxpayer dollars,
Right.
which has been a suggestion. What if we do a pure appropriation? Well, I don't understand that thought process.
Yeah.
Why appropriate money that you don't have to appropriate?
Yeah. Well, God bless you. We appreciate we appreciate your support right out of the gate this year. I said earlier this morning, and this is not a campaign commercial for you, but I think it's absolutely important that a guy like you is there and has that kind of access to the leadership. Mm-hmm. If we were in a situation right now where we didn't have a guy who was connected to the leadership,
right.
This thing would have gone nowhere yesterday.
Absolutely.
So
I do agree with that.
So God bless you for the hard work you're doing on that. All right, let's talk about other things. I've been texting back and forth with Senator Buck Newton this morning, and I know this is happening in the Senate, but yesterday the big news in the Senate, another Eastern North Carolina legislator in the news this morning because they're working to go ahead and try to lift this moratorium on fracking. And Senator Buck Newton out of Wilson, who I think is going to be on with us tomorrow morning, is leading the charge on that. How do you think that's going to go?
This has
environmentalists aren't going to like it.
Of course. Well, this has been a long time coming. Over in the House, you have Representative Jamie Bowles and Representative Mike Stone, who have worked really, really hard to try to come up with language that is appropriate. And the reality is in North Carolina, this is in the backyard of Representative Jamie Bowles and Representative Mike Stone. From what I understand, and I personally have not seen the language yet, but from what I understand, those two representatives are extraordinarily happy with the language. They have been very cautious, taking a very measured approach to how we formulate this legislation in order to achieve what the overall goal is, which is an all-above energy process. I'm very anxious to see the language, but my gut is if these two individuals can support it and things, it's something that I think I could probably support as well. Barring not seeing the legislation and seeing exactly if there's anything funky in it. But I think that it's an approach that we need to take. It's steps that we need to take, and I think that it'll probably move forward.
Now that you're back in Raleigh, what's the latest on teacher raises and the budget? That's all we heard about leading up to the legislative session. Now we're getting into the weeds a little bit of some of the other issues, but we had Moral Monday again this week. What's the latest? Is the money going to be there to do what the governor wants to do with teacher raises?
I think it is. The Senate is working on their budget now. So no word. They're pretty closed-mouthed on what's going on in their committee meetings. So we'll see exactly what comes out of that. I know they're working really hard. I think we'll have a budget from the Senate very quickly. How aligned it will be with what the governor proposed is yet to be determined. But I think that everybody's on board with teacher pay and how it's the methodology in which we get there. I think is what's in question at this point. The money's there. What we're trying to achieve will be done. It's just how much and what method we do to get there is going to be the question. I know the House has its own thoughts as well.
I saw that William Barber and all the protesters had duct tape on their mouth Monday night. Was it a little quieter Monday night than normal up there?
I avoided that entire area of the legislative building, so I really couldn't tell you. But like everything else, that's their right to be there and to protest the things they believe in. Just like it is our right to try to move the state in the direction that we believe, and clearly it's working when you see our unemployment numbers and you see the growth that we're having in jobs and it's just the way we're paying down our debt. Governor McCrory was on Fox and Friends yesterday morning and did a wonderful job.
He actually did.
Laying out
I
what
saw
we've
that
done.
after I got off the air yesterday. Somebody sent me a video of that and I watched it. I thought it was Governor McCrory's best national television appearance.
Yeah.
They were talking about him being a presidential contender after that. I was like, oh, my Lord, here we go.
Here we go.
So, but, I'm glad to see the governor out touting what's happening in North Carolina and offsetting some of this negative spin that you're getting from the News and Observer and WRAL and places like that. Because, again, I was out speaking to a church group last night, and they were asking me about various parts of this. And, to me, the Republicans have done a hell of a job in a year now not just a year, but the last 3 years, but certainly since controlling all facets of government and having a veto-proof majority.
Right.
I believe I think that the Republicans have done a great job with everything but the public relations war. You're losing the public relations war because the media just keeps hammering you. So it's great to see the governor out fighting back on national television and saying, look, We took over in January 2013. Unemployment in this country, in this state, was 9.5%. Today, it's 6.2%. You know, and that's indisputable evidence that some of the things are working here.
That's right. Well, we're never going to control that media component. We understand that. Our job is to get out there and personally get the message out of what we've done, and it's undeniable. The numbers don't lie. Individuals in this state have more money in their paychecks each and every pay period. The unemployment rate has dropped. We took on a $2.5 billion unemployment debt that's down to $1 billion now. We'll have that paid off in the next year. These are things that are putting our neighbors back to work and are positive policies that are working for North Carolina and making us desirable. We just had a study come out and say that we're the 4th friendliest business state in the country right now. I mean, those are huge strides that people are starting to look at North Carolina and say, hey, look, it's a great business-friendly state now. They have wonderful resources, great workforce-ready environment. You can go to the beach, you can go to the mountains. It's just a great place to live and work, and we're very proud of that.
Back to the teacher issue, a judge in Raleigh last week struck down the part of the new legislators' law that eliminated teacher tenure for high school and other school teachers at that level. I'm beginning to hear some people in the legislature say, maybe we're going to revisit that. Was that an overreach? Is it time to open that door again now, or do you think people are going to take more of a hardline stance on that?
Well, I think you have a kind of a divided caucus on that between both the House and the Senate. You have some that are hardline stance on it. Some of that would like to see a little different approach taken. But my personal belief is from the judge's standpoint, I think that was a little far overreaching, and we'll swiftly move to appeal that decision that was made. But yeah, I think it would be a prudent decision for us to go back, revisit it, and take a more measured approach to what we try to achieve with teacher tenure and do something that's more palatable.
See, that's what I hope happens. I hope the legislature will take that particular part of it up again. I think that a lot of people don't really understand the difference between a high school teacher that has tenure and a university professor who has tenure. And I think what the legislators are really mad at is the university professors who have tenure, not the high school teacher. But it does. There are some things there that bother me, and I think need to be looked at. But
I've said it since the beginning. Good administrators will keep good teachers and dismiss teachers that need to go into a different profession. You see it all the time. Right. So the focus needs to be hiring and retaining and training great administrators.
We got about 3 minutes left. Anything else on your mind that you want to tell us about after 1 week in the legislature, or not quite 1 week?
It's going to be a swift session. Things are moving very, very quickly. There's in terms of the big things, I think the tax bill that we moved in the House yesterday was a big tweak. So that's going to be an interesting move as we move it into the Senate and see what comes back out of most likely conference committee. But I think that overall we're going to get the job done and get out as quickly as possible, and hopefully by the end of June.